Hello and welcome to my channel. This is astroguyru, your intuitive and high sensitive astrologer. Um, I hope you're doing well today. Let me know how you're doing in the comment section. Um, in this astrological segment, I am going to be talking about planets in astrology. Uh, Basically, we'll just be sharing my experiences, my understanding and my observation with what different planets kind of do or how they impact the different aspects or different areas of our lives, pretty much. Um, yeah. Before we get started, though, I just want to take a brief moment to just say thank you. Just want to say thank you so much for your support. Thank you for liking, thank you for disliking, thank you for sharing, and thank you for commenting as well. Um, and just subscribing as well, because I do have other content that I have posted on the channel. Some other astrology stuff that I've posted. I've talked about elements, I've talked about qualities in astrology, where I've talked about uh, like the cardinal signs, the fixed signs, the mutable signs, and I've kind of shared all of those in a fun and formal, casual way, but still in a way that I hope is informative, in a way that I hope it's educational and also maybe empowering, for those who um, might be new to astrology and trying to figure out on this, self-learning journey, trying to figure out your energy, your vibration, and trying to understand your chart and so forth. So hopefully some of the content that I've posted on there will be of help. I also do birth charts, birth chart interpretations. So if that's something that you're interested in, also let me know. I'd be so happy to do those. I'm so passionate about this, so I could just go on and on and on and on. So I just have to remind myself, yeah, to stay on topic. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much, and I hope that you'll enjoy this recording. So yeah, so I guess we'll get started. I am trying to think how I'm actually gonna do this. I was actually thinking that I would maybe um, have them like every planet, recorded individually and have like separate recordings for it. But then I might maybe have more to say, um, on some planets than others, and so it's possible that some recordings might be shorter and some might be longer. So I just thought that maybe I'll just do like a rant, just talk for maybe as long as I can here. Maybe I'll do like 30 minutes here and see how many planets I can cover in this first, 30-minute segment. And then if I don't get all of them included, I will have like a part two. Maybe that's better. Maybe it's better that way. Um, yeah. So yeah, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into it. Let's get started. So yeah, so planets. So in astrology, when I think about planets in astrology, I kind of see them as actors. Um, Actors that are playing a role or that are part of a scene, and it's a well rehearsed, scene by the universe. Everything is as it was meant to be, whether we like it, whether we don't, whether we find it comfortable, whether we don't find it comfortable. It's still, a play of events and, narratives that just kind of was intended to happen, and we get to reap the benefits of those, or we get to learn something from those, but essentially they're still actors. Planets are still actors, and they come into our lives or into your chart, your birth chart, with the embodiment of a particular energy or particular vibration, and then it utilizes that vibration or that energy in a particular aspect or area of your life. So what I mean by that is that you might have your sun. Let's say you have your sun in Aquarius. The sun is the actor, and if it's in Aquarius, it is taking the embodiment of the energy or the vibration of Aquarius. And if you have it in your second house, or in your third house, or whatever house you may have it in, that means that the sun's the sun's energy, or like, well, it has adopted Aquarius's energy. So the activity, like the manifestation of that vibration, will be most prominent, um, like in your third house, where its activities will be placed, where it has fallen, where it has, um, been determined or decided, at the time of birth, to be placed in. And so that's what happens. And so somebody else who is also, let's say, a Sun Aquarius might obviously have similar traits to, well, of course, all Aquarians will have traits that are somewhat, relatable and somewhat similar, but their energy and their activities might be focused elsewhere. So, like I was saying, like one Sun in Aquarius person might have their activity placed in the third house, and then another person, Sun in Aquarius person, will have their activities placed in the seventh house, for example, um, because that's how it was determined, at the time of birth. Those are both Aquarian people. They have Sun in Aquarian, but their focus in life, or the way that that energy manifests itself, is different. So I'm still going to do a series where I talk about the different houses and the meanings behind it, but I'm still going to mention them briefly, just as examples, because it helps to make, the impact of planets more understandable, and it's relatable, or relevant rather. So with a one Aquarius person who has their sun in Aquarius in the third house, that energy, they're probably going to have more of an emphasis, or traits, or they're going to act out traits or qualities or characteristics that are in alignment with, I shouldn't actually say in alignment, because it's not always in alignment, but it's like their energy will be drawn towards the third house activities, which are the house of, of communication, of travel, short distance traveling, siblings, um, sports also sometimes. So so one Aquarian person will have more of like an interest, in that area of their life, because that's the house in which it has fallen. Whereas the second type of person who has a sun in Aquarius in, let's say, the fifth house, will probably have a more of a little bit more social, or a little bit more creative, because the fifth house is actually more sports than the third house is. That's like our hobbies and things like that. So maybe this Aquarian person will be less serious than the third person, because the third house is also a little bit serious, because it's the house of like education, elementary education and so forth, and siblings and so forth. So maybe there might be a little bit element of seriousness to that Sun in Aquarius person who has a third house placement, compared to a Sun in Aquarius person who has a fifth house placement, because the fifth house is the house of fun, of hobbies, of sports, of dating, the social life, and arts and creativity and so forth. So you see, those two Aquarian people might be different in that sense, because their energy is pulled in different aspects or different areas of their lives, differently, you know? So that is like one way that, planets have like an impact, or significance on our, day-to-day life, our day-to-day living. Um, and so that's why it's actually important to understand the meaning behind each, individual planet, and the type of actor that it is, what it represents and what it brings. Um, and also sometimes what the planet brings might not always be in alignment with the energy that it has to embody, you know? So, for example, I was saying that you might have like Sun in Aquarius. So the Sun is the actor that's taking the energy of Aquarius and placing it in the third house or the fifth house. But the Sun might not like the energy of Aquarius. You know what I mean? Maybe the Sun might like the energy of Aries or the energy of Leo because it rules Leo. So, for example, if this person has the Sun, in Leo, in the, let's say, the fifth house, because the fifth house belongs to Leo, that's like a perfect alignment because the Sun is in its natural ruler and it's in its natural house. Then that's like a perfect alignment. But then it also happens that sometimes you know, um, the planet does not always do so well in that particular energy that it find itself in. So, for example, if you have Mars in Cancer, Mars is like a warrior. Mars is like a fighter. It wants to fight. It's aggressive. It's intense. It's passionate. It's dedicated. And it wants to get noticed and put its feet forward and let people know that like, hey, I'm here, I'm a fighter, I'm a warrior, you can't walk all over me. um, and then Cancer is the total opposite of that. Cancer is like, oh, I want to nurture you, I want to take care of you, I want to make sure you feel comfortable. Oh, are you okay? Cancer has this sensitivity, of course, very underrated sensitivity that Cancer has. Of course, I see it as a strength, but of course, the world that we live in, of course, does not always embrace sensitivity or emotionality and so forth. Um, but of course, Cancer has that, like a lot of it. And so, but these are two energies that don't mix very well. Mars and Cancerian energies don't, mix so well. So if the planet Mars, this particular actor Mars, comes and has to embody the energy of Cancer, it's not happy with that because it doesn't do so well in Cancer, you know? So the planets taking up particular energies doesn't always mean that it's a good vibration. So Mars in Cancer is that example where Mars just doesn't really function so well in Cancer. And on top of that, if it's in a bad house, it can be even more disastrous. Like, because Mars is going to be like, first of all, I don't like this energy of Cancer. It's too nurturing, it's too whatever. And I also don't like that I have to act in this house number 7 or house number 8 or house number 2 or house number 4 or whatever. um, you know, so that is also one way in which, like, the planet and the energy that it has to embody might not be in alignment. And so, um, and then in that way, you know, it leads to, um, yeah, it leads to dysfunction in some way, or what I maybe prefer to think of as like life lessons that we kind of have to learn. If you are this person with a Mars in Cancer, how do you overcome? How do you empower your Mars when he is drowning in your wonderful ocean of sensitivity and emotions? How do you get this fiery warrior from drowning, in your waters? So it's that type of thing, that you have to kind of figure out how to utilize that energy, that is kind of falling. It's in its detriment when it's in Cancer, for example, Mars. So yeah, so it's important to understand planets and to understand the energy that they bring forward, and the houses in which they impact. And that's the point, of this recording, is to help understand that. So yeah, so we talked about the sun, and the sun basically is one of the most important planets because it's the first. It's the I am experience. Of our being. So it's how we present to the world. Sometimes it's associated also with the first house, like with the rising, the our first house, the house of self. So The sun is our vitality, it's our core energy, you know. It's how we present to the world, it's how people see us. You know, when somebody asks us like, what's your zodiac sign? Usually people are telling about their sun placement. If someone says I'm a Libra, it means that their sun is in Libra, you know. Um, and Yeah, it's powerful. It's also powerful in my opinion, I feel, because it stays in the sign for the longest period, if I can put it that way, considering the personal planets. We also have the outer planets that are a little bit more slower moving. Those are like generational planets. So those, of course, they obviously stay longer within a particular sign because they're quite slow moving. But within within the personal planets, the sun kind of stays, I feel like, the longest in each zodiac sign compared to like the moon. For example, the moon changes every other day, you know, like it's a very fast moving planet. And so is Mercury also. Like Mercury is also another fast-moving planet, you know. Venus, you know, all of those, and that's why they're called like personal planets, and because they move really fast. The sun too does, but like of all of those, like the sun still stays like the longest. That's why you would have somebody who is like sun in Aquarius, but then you'd have five people who are sun in Aquarius, but then they all have different moon placements or different Mercury placements because, like, you know, the moon moves really fast and Mercury moves really fast. So, you know, it doesn't stay as long, they don't stay as long in one sign as the sun does. And so that's why we always identify kind of like with the sun. You know, we identify with the sun vibration or the sun energy, but that's what the sun represents essentially. It's the I am experience, it's our vital energy, our core energy. Um, and It's really the energy that we kind of readily present and that we wear on our outside, you know. And sometimes if you're a really good astrologer, or if you're a good energy reader, or like a psychic person or whatever, and you just look at somebody or you sit down with somebody for a minute or two, you might be able to recognize what kind of vibration they are, and you would be able to actually maybe guess, you know, what their zodiac sign is, because, you know, Cancers, for example, will have a certain way of just being that is identifiable, you know, and Aries have a certain way of being that is kind of also identifiable if you're very attuned to energy and to this type of thing. So the sun placement is very potent because, you know, that energy is very recognizable, much quicker maybe than Mercury or you know, or the moon placement. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit more attention to figure out what somebody's moon placement is, or what their Mars is, or what their Mercury is. But the sun usually tends to be the easiest to pick up because it's the most powerful and the most, you know, strongest. Um, and then The moon is next. Um, and the moon has to do, well, the moon is, I feel, it rules Cancer. And that has to do with our emotions. It has to do with emotional security. It has to do with kind of like how we handle our emotions, our thoughts, you know, our internal thoughts and so forth. Um, it also looks at like when we are in a relationship, it also looks at like what's your love language? Like what's your what is it that your lover does that makes you feel secure, you know? Usually, like if you don't have a very strong moon connection with somebody, um you'll find that maybe the relationship doesn't last very long. But if you're after just like a fling or something like that, then maybe Mars is like you might have like a strong Mars compatibility. But then if you have a weak moon compatibility, that person might not be a very good candidate for like a long-term, like, you know, relationship, you know. So it's that emotional security, that emotional stability and safety. So that's kind of like what the moon offers. Um, and of course, also the moon is a very fast-moving planet, and it changes quite a lot, actually. And we see that a lot also with Cancers. That's why their mood are always, changing quite a lot because it's just a very fast-moving energy. Um, it has to do with your habits, and also how you express your emotions and how you share yourself with other people. Um, how much time that it actually takes you to think about certain things. Somebody who's a moon in Cancer might, process things like a little bit more slower because they may feel the vibe and the atmosphere and kind of sense that what's the right thing to say and what's not the right thing to say that's like less offensive and so forth. Where somebody who has a moon in maybe in Gemini will just say, things like whatever comes to whatever comes to mind in that moment without maybe stopping for a second to think about it. Um, yeah, it is also on a more darker side. It also has to do with, our hidden fears, like our hidden emotional fears, like, like anger or fear or like jealousy, things of that nature. Um, so if somebody is not so evolved in terms of their moon vibration, those are some of the things to look out for as well. Yeah. And then next, move on to Mercury. Mercury is, I think, that's the key word. Mercury is about communication. More specifically, it's about like communication style. It's also how we think, um, but not in the way that not in the way that the moon thinks. Like the moon is like emotional thinking or emotional IQ, whereas like Mercury is more of let's say like the more rational, like the more um, sort of like logical type of thinking. Um, so it's also like our curiosity and like our interest. Um, and What else comes to mind when I think about Mercury? Yeah, mostly I just think of it as a communication planet, pretty much. It could also be seen as our intuition, how we intuit things. Um, are we introspective? Are we extroverted? Are we, it could also be seen from that point of view. Like introverted in terms of our communication style or extroverted in terms of like communication style. So somebody who has like maybe Mercury in Gemini would maybe be more of like an extroverted like communicator, where someone who has Mercury in Taurus would be more introverted or like reserved, communicator. Like they will stop and think about their words carefully. They will like plan their speech or their presentation so well and check every single detail, So yeah, that type of thing is what Mercury is about, pretty much. Yeah. It's also possible for Mercury to be a source of attraction because usually people talk about, attraction from the point of view of Venus, Mars, and the moon, because those are kind of seen as like, mm, like Venus is what you're sexually attracted to, and the moon is who, the one who gives you like emotional stability and security, and then Mars is action, like what type of sexual chemistry exists, what type of like sex do you guys have, is it like adventurous, is it like traditional, is it like conservative, but it's also possible to be attracted to somebody's mind, you know the way they articulate themselves, the way they think. I think there's a word for it that I forgot now when you're attracted to somebody's mind. Um, what's the word? Like, if somebody knows what the word is, like, please put that Please put that in the comment section. I'm gonna try and Google that actually. Let me see if I can find that. Uh, Attraction of the mind, maybe. Let's see, attraction of the mind. Wait, no. What's it called? What's it called? When you are attracted to someone's mind. Because I know that there's a word for it, and um, oh, sapiosexual. I think it's sapiosexual. Oh no, sapiosexual yeah, sapiosexual, sexually attracted to intelligence. Exactly, yeah. So sapiosexuality, that could be like a very Mercurian thing when someone is attracted to somebody's logic, someone's mind, someone's intelligence, how someone communicates, how they articulate themselves. That's like a very Mercury type of thing. And that could also be like a source of attraction to some people. And so that type of attraction is known as, sapiosexual. So there you go. I found it. So, so Mercury does play an important role. It could be also like a source of attraction in some ways, where you're simply attracted to somebody's, way of communicating, but then maybe you're not attracted to other to other aspects that they have because they might not be, compatible. But that's what Mercury pretty much does. And it's also how we learn. It's how we solve problems. Um, yeah, and also like general interests. Pretty much general interest as they pertain to the mind. Like, are you somebody who likes to read? Um, how does your mind, get stimulated? Do you like watching documentaries more? Is that how your mind gets stimulated? Are you somebody who likes to play like games, like, a game of chess or like board games, that could be like one way in which like your mind, gets, stimulated. That's also like a Mercury thing as well. So whatever stimulates the mind, and then how we sort of communicate and articulate what we've learned, through however means, that we've learned what we've learned. What's the time? Where are we now? We're by 27 minutes. I think I'll do one more. I'll try and stop like at 30 minutes, and then I'll have like a part two. So I'm gonna do one more planet. I'm gonna do Venus. Um, since I talked about it briefly now. So Venus is the planet of love, and attraction, and the key word is I love. It pretty much has to do with like romantic relationships, how you attract people, what kinds of people you attract, your kind of like your social skills, like how do you flirt and things like that, how affectionate are you, and what you basically consider beautiful to you. So I guess that's what you're attracted to. Yeah, and what you look for in a partner, and also how you interact with others. Um, in some To some degree, it has to do with money, like small money, but like more like money in terms of like how we spend it, um, for pleasure, kind of, like when you're dining out, that special somebody that you fancy. Um, that could be like a Venus thing, because it's like it's a romantic thing. Like when you're buying somebody like a Valentine's gift or like a birthday gift, or it's a very Venus thing. So like money in that sense, you know. Um, what else comes to mind? Also, Venus is considered like a lucky planet. I kind of see Jupiter more as the lucky planet, but like Venus is also like a lucky planet. Like it has like some good fortune if it's like well aspected, you know? Yeah, but probably Jupiter is the luckiest, I think, of all the planets. And Yeah, Venus is also, let me see what else comes to. It also has to do with like how active you are like in your social life. Like what do you like for example, like if you are somebody like if you have maybe let's say like a Venus in Taurus, like you would be like your social life or like your expenditures, like social expenditures would be something that's more or less um Taurian influence. So you would be very careful with like how you spend your money. Um, maybe, well, Taurus actually they do love good things. They'll probably take you to like a lavish restaurant and and stuff because they're all about the senses and so forth. But they're also very careful with their money though. They work really hard for it, so they better be they better be. Um, but they're the type of people that like they would be slow moving, and also like somebody who has like a Taurus in Venus. So if they have the if the planet Venus embodies the energy of Taurus, they're likely to be attracted to people who are more earthy, you know, who have like earth elements, like a Capricorn type of person or another Taurian or like a Virgo type of person. Sometimes also they might be drawn to water people because earth and water they go really well together. So so like a person who has like a Taurian Venus or Venus in Taurus um, might be drawn to yeah to those people and um, they might be like really also like in terms of like approaching somebody or dating somebody they might be more slower to act or more cautious approach as opposed to somebody who maybe has like a Venus in Gemini. Venus in Gemini, if they like somebody they're going to be all flirty and talkative and try to impress you with their words and their wit and making jokes and so forth. Like it's a very fast quick mental energy like when Venus in Gemini is attracted to somebody. um and Venus in Gemini usually would be attracted to somebody who is, more mental, like, like an Aquarian or a Libra or like a fire sign. Um, so yeah, so that's what Venus actually represents. Um, and so when you have a planet, when Venus takes on the energy of a particular planet, that's what it does, and also depending which house it falls in, determines the impact that it will have. Um, so, yeah, I think I'm going to leave that here. Now we're exactly at 33 minutes. So I'm going to leave that here. We've covered the sun, we've covered the moon, we've covered Mercury, and we've covered Venus. So we've covered one, two, three, four planets. Yeah, we've covered four planets along with like a brief introduction of the planets itself. So, yeah, so I think I'm gonna make this part one, and then I'll have a part two where I do the rest, the remaining planets. Um, so yeah, so I'm gonna sign out here. But before I sign out, I just want to remind you guys that there are more content on the channel. If you like this format, if this works for you, if you find this informative, entertaining, however you find it, and you like it, please do let me know. Do comment, do share, and do subscribe. Um, and I'll see you in the next one. So, ciao.